one day away to the end of March 2020, the month that saw Kenya confirm its first case of coronavirus, a disease that is now a global pandemic. Thank you so much for tuning in to TV47. This is In Other News, the show where we bring you the latest updates on top stories from across the world with the help of journalists from our newsroom, and let you also inform us on what is happening in your locality. You can send in your videos or call us live using the details on the bottom of your screen. My name is Tracy Mokami, and this is what's happening in the newsroom today. Today we have a relatively new panel, not people new to TV47, just new in other news. We have Paul Kirobi, we have Salome Muiruri. Hi Salome.
Hello, hi.
And we have Clifford Ndubi, just to help us put perspective on some of the top stories that are happening right now. And of course, matters coronavirus. This has been the story over and over again, and we have updates from our counties. I think to begin with you, Clifford, Nairobi County, where we are broadcasting live from, what are some of the measures that are being taken by the government to help contain the spread of the disease?
Thank you very much, Tracy, for having me on this show today. And right now, the government is really doing a lot to ensure that they curb these diseases. Nairobi is the epicenter in Kenya. Yesterday night, while I was going home, we saw Nairobi County through the fire engine, the firefighting department. They were really doing a lot in trying to do fumigation across the county.
I think we actually have the footage. We have actually had our reporter live from the CBD. Yes. Can we see those pictures, Jackie? All right, I think we will have the pictures later. But yes, Cliff.
Now, I really think that we are doing enough, but not to the very best that we should be doing to contain this disease, and learning from the other nations which have already have endured the worst from this pandemic. Many people are questioning now, what about the transport sector? Is that that is now where the weak point lies, and we should be finding a solution and a way to mitigate this disease from spreading through the transport sector.
Paul Kirobi, I think you can help us just understand more. We had measures by the government last week, and we saw social distancing being practiced in the transport sector. Are there other ways that the private sector and the public transport sector can help curb the spread of this disease in the city?
Yeah, very true, Tracy. I agree with your point. But first of all, let us look at this thing in a global perspective. And looking at other nations and compared it to Kenya, I think people living in the city, they have enough information on how to control or rather stay away from contracting this particular coronavirus as compared to the people living in the village. I think the government has really tried in terms of ensuring that they feed Kenyans with enough information on how they can be able to stay away from this coronavirus. This includes the personal protective equipment, which there has been question lingering on whether Kenya has enough of personal protective equipment. Apart from that, let me just touch on what Clifford Ndubi had mentioned before on issue of fumigation, which took place yesterday night at within Nairobi County. I think the county government has really tried, but in my own maybe personal opinion, is that we cannot say that it is too late, but though the exercise should have begun a long time ago in ensuring that they start from the airport. That is where foreigners come in. Then the second place should have been around the city and market centers in order to ensure that they combat this particular virus. But so far so good. I think the government is heading the right direction, and looking also to the curfew that has been imposed that took effect on Thursday last week. I think right now we are heading the right direction, though there has been a lot of complaint from Kenyans concerning the 7 p.m. The curfew that has been imposed. Yeah.
I think even before we move to the curfew, Salome, other counties apart from Nairobi County, what has been the government response?
Thank you very much for inviting me to this show. I think, first of all, I'd like to address the issue that both Clifford and Paul didn't address in terms of the county has intensified screening. And this is not testing, but this is the screening in different parts of the county in Nairobi, using the shotgun just to check out on the temperatures. But a lot of effort, especially in Mombasa County. We've seen the governor of Mombasa talk about seeking additional funds and setting aside some funds to help in the fight against the COVID-19. We've also seen what the governor of Kilifi has said, and he has talked about having conversation with the CS, that is Mutahi Kagwe, in regards to efforts of finding out and doing more screening and testing in this county. Remember, being Nairobi is the leading county, and we have several cases from Mombasa and the sides of Kwale. Then the other thing we've seen a lot of efforts in terms of ensuring that people are keeping their distance. This is social distance in Kisumu. Despite the fact that a lot of people do not want to go home as stipulated in the curfew, but we've seen different people in terms like governors. We've seen the governor of Kirinyaga, that is Anwar Guru, they're talking about the preparedness in terms of availing hospital beds, but we still have the questions of in the event that the situation gets out of hand, is the infrastructure, health infrastructure in counties able to handle the situation?
Before we even talk about matters, infrastructure and all, I think one of the things that really caught my eye and was a welcome move for me was the ferry and social distancing, and the fact that people are now able to travel in a way that does not actually expose them to this pandemic. Eldoret, there is talk that Eldoret is on lockdown. Clifford?
Definitely. One of our reporters there, Calvin Chitwa, has been following up this story from yesterday night. And it's so astonishing when you tell us of social distancing, but now the law enforcement agencies themselves cannot adhere to this. And it raises more questions as, will we be, as a country, are we going to see more cases as a result of what has happened from how they've managed the curfew issue? Something else, I really think that the government itself is not really doing what is expected in terms of providing enough resources to ensure that this virus is controlled. Reason being, once you have the shotgun, once you do the fumigation, that is not enough. We need to find a serious way of controlling this through having enough resources at the county level hospitals. Reason being, we have 150. According to the recent reports, we have 150 ICU beds across the country. Are we really ready for this? No.
I think you've touched on an issue I think that a lot of us really want to, we are itching to talk about. Curfew. Have you guys experienced, have you found yourselves outside past 7 p.m., Paul?
Okay, so far so good. On my side, I've not experienced curfew, but the first time, that is when I left job to go home, the roads were very clear. That was around 8:00 p.m. that is, and no one was around. I think the force that the GSU and also the police officers used in the first time really gave Kenyans a good directive. And right now you can see no one is complaining about the curfew. I think we are taking the right shape, and that is what Kenyans really want. And maybe to add on what Clifford and Dubi had mentioned before on issues of healthcare system, I think the WHO, from the Director General, that is Tedros, mentioned that looking at the health facility in Kenyans or other African countries, they are quite fragile and they cannot be able to fight this respiratory syndrome, coronavirus in Kenya. And that is why there is a need of the government focusing on this particular county. Earlier on, I mentioned about the issue on the city where many Kenyans, they converge in the evening. Yes, the curfew is good. People should be at home by exactly before 7 p.m. because many a times Kenyans, they meet after work. And I think that is where the government wanted to tighten the rope and ensure there is no this contact of one person to the next. On issue of curfew, the government has really done enough. Though when looking at what police officers are doing in other counties, there was a clip that went viral on social media that police in some places of Eldoret were using excessive force. Walikuwa na mwaga, if you may allow me to use Kiswahili kidogo, walikuwa wanatambaratisha zile biashara za wafanyakazi. I think that is not good at all.
And I actually think, Paul, the issue of police brutality is chronic in this country. I think it's not an issue that we are seeing for the first time. Every time that we are required, the police required to help us keep law and order, we always find ourselves in a situation where we keep complaining. And Salome, based on some of the cases of police brutality that we have seen, Paul, inakuwasha?
Just a little bit. Let me touch on it. The Council of Governors had issued a press statement, and also the IPOA, Independent Police Oversight Authority, over the police brutality that occurred in several places around the country. And apart from lauding what the government had done in order to, the first day, I think on the issue of brutality, it's not the first time Kenyans are seeing this, but Kenyans, we are in discipline. Looking at, we are in discipline.
No.
I think
categorical. That's what the CS Mutai Kagwe mentioned.
I'd like
you're saying.
Let me interject on that, the issue of indiscipline, where it's coming from. Kirobi, I beg to differ with you, because at 4 p.m., for example, on Friday, when the curfew started, or rather took effect, at 4 p.m., mwananchi was being harassed, left, right, and center. Hakukuwa na matri, na unapata hii curfew, hata jana nikitoka hapa tukienda home, maneiba wamejikusanya kwa manyumba yao, wanakunywa pombe. How will this control now the spread of this disease?
I think I'd like to hear the thoughts of Salome on this.
I think I'll take it over from the gentleman and say that I agree with Kirobi, because let's go back to Friday, when the curfew was supposed to start. Everyone was waiting, and pictures were circulating of the police doing press-ups.
We actually have that video.
No.
We actually do.
Okay,
let's see just the form of preparation that our officers.
Hit man thing, bad man thing, hit man thing, wa bebe, skilo, wa bebe wasikia, wa bebe, skilo, wa bebe wasikia, wa bebe, skilo.
I think those were just some of the memes that people are creating and just trying to make light of the moment. But
was that being used to usher the curfew?
But then let's look at it this way. When you have Kenyans wait with bated breath to see what the police will do, and let's give an example of Saturday. There were no cases of people being harassed. This is because some of the people already had seen. They were like waiting. But I will not undermine the fact that the police...
I think Salome, your train of thought is really good, but remember, Saturday is not a work day for a lot of people. Because I think it's important that we acknowledge the level at which our public transport system is at. So we have long queues. By the time people close in work at 4 p.m., I don't think it's viable to have the population home by 7 p.m.
And this is what the CS said yesterday in his brief. He asked employers, if you're letting your people leave office late and you know the curfew is at 7, this is injustice. And he said, and he told the employers, please let people come in early as 7, let them work and let them leave the office early so that they can beat the curfew. And then the other thing that I'd like to state in terms of police brutality, we saw Charles Owino speak about it today, and he talked about the internal mechanisms of the police, and they're going to use the mechanisms that they have in place to ensure that all those that violated the rights of Kenyans are going to be brought to book. Remember, the police is trying to redeem itself and change its image.
But for how long?
The police service.
We've waited too long for this. It's been in talks for the longest time.
But let's give credit where it's due. I think
the issue here is about brutality on the police. And basically, looking at yesterday as compared to the first day when curfew was imposed, I think there was a certain unit of police officers who were not in the street in order to ensure that they combat this particular, to ensure that the curfew takes in place in the right manner. I think that is why I said the first time, that is the first day when curfew was imposed, there was need of police being harsh for Kenyans to listen. And that is why I mentioned that Kenyans are very indisciplined. They have been told not once, so many
Kirobi,
times.
are you trying to justify what the policemen
Kenyans
did? Are you trying to justify what the harassment which came
No. I think what he's saying is that in the near future, Kenyans, every time we're given a directive, let's try and follow the law. And I think Mutahi Kagwe was very categorical.
I think, guys, I think it will be. I think we have highlighted this issue time and time again,
Just one
and
point.
it is up.
Just one point, Tracy.
Yeah, all right.
While here in Kenya, we are talking of police brutality being on the rise and nothing changing over the years. In Europe, because of the lockdown and everything, there's an increase in domestic violence.
Please.
Really?
No.
That's true. That's true.
But also, let me talk about China, and everyone will say that the Chinese have been able to beat the COVID-19 because of being disciplined.
Yeah.
And I think if we take the approach that China took, then definitely as a country we'll be able to handle this. Remember,
I think Salome, it will be interesting to just see how Africa is going to try and match up to China, things that even other countries in the first world are not being able to enforce. And even as we speak on COVID-19, I think I'd like to know, now that is the situation as it is in Kenya. So what is happening in Africa and the rest of the world?
So do I take it?
Yeah.
Let's look at the numbers. Let's look at South Africa. I think South Africa, in terms of discipline, maybe one would say it's worse off as compared to Kenya. Some people were partying, singing Corona.
Is it an African problem? Hatupendi kuambiwa?
No, but the numbers in South Africa are really high. We have 1,187 cases.
1280.
I think that was
1,280.
Yeah, in terms of numbers, and I think that's the largest in terms of, as compared to African countries like Nigeria and countries like Rwanda. And the reason South Africa has been known, even talk about HIV, the rates of HIV are really high. And I think South Africa, being a country that would say is well developed as compared to other African countries, I think South Africans need to really pull up their socks.
And I think there are measures that are being taken. We know that South Africa is on lockdown. We know that Rwanda is on lockdown. And the trajectory of the disease, and if you look at the numbers and the progression, I think more countries are going to be put on lockdown, even as the WHO encourages more countries to just ensure that there is no unnecessary movements and all. And it will be interesting to see how other African countries will be taking up the issues of lockdown. And I know that in Rwanda, people who are in Rwanda and on lockdown are being provided for food, other necessities such as water and electricity. Kirobi?
Now, basically, Tracy, I agree with you, and that is what should happen to other countries in Africa. When middle-income countries put in place the lockdown measures to combat this coronavirus, I think the government should provide enough food to the people who are staying at home, because they are suffering a lot, and that is my point.
I wish we really had someone here who could speak Kinyarwanda for us, but from the reports that we've gathered, also our reporters back in Rwanda, there are actually government the police now, instead of being brutal with people on the streets, are helping people just get access to food and water. And these are some of the problems that we are seeing in Kenya, because when you tell us curfew by 7 p.m., there are businesses that run at night. There are, people who still haven't gotten their daily bread.
I think, Tracy, let's talk of the curfew in Kenya, and sorry to bring you back to this, but it's in relation to what exactly you're saying. As a country, as Kenya, we say that maybe supermarket is an essential service in the country. But then the same people who should be going to shop at the supermarket, you're telling them to be at home before 7. How is that workable?
but maybe, Tracy, let's look at, like when you're talking about Rwanda, Rwanda only has, I think, around 70 cases, and the country
60.
is small. This was the latest data before we came in, it was around 70. Right. Nigeria has 111.
And actually Lagos is on lockdown because of this.
Yes, and the lockdown it started yesterday, I think, at midnight. But still, the reason the CS said, basically the reason that they're not putting in a lockdown in Kenya is because of the nature of our economy. And
is it the nature?
But there is no difference between these economies in Africa.
Let's compare Rwanda and Kenya. The fact is, we do not have the capacity, or rather the government has no capacity to provide for its citizens. Let's be honest.
I think this is one of those things that we will be doing right after the lockdown. I think these are some of the issues we will be insisting on. Now that we know where the gaps are for our country, and let's move it to the global scene. I think, Kirobi, yeah.
Before we go to the global scene, first of all, let's look at on the issue of providing food to its citizen. What Clifford Nubi had mentioned before. I think on the issue of food, food was to be supplied to the people living in slums, because those are the ones who are not be able to bring food on the table. And that is why we should focus on that, not the people who are basically well off and people who are living in the city.
But Kirobi should tell us where will the food come from.
That is true, Kirobi. I have actually
come from. I mean,
Salome, I think we have seen some effort by government to try and check our food reserves and just ensure that we will not be going hungry through this period, and we will be keeping in touch with some of those updates and other measures that the government is going to be willing to put out. And just before we go on a short break, I think I'd like us to look at the global scene and some of the changes that we have seen. We now know that the United States is leading in the number of infections globally, and it is actually disheartening to see the situation on ground. You've been keeping tabs on that, Clifford.
Yes, definitely. Right now, America is the epicenter of the virus. More than 120,000 cases have been reported there, but the deaths, they are really controlling it. And we are expecting the President, Donald Trump, to put a lockdown on some states, New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut. But let's look at it. Let's be blank with each other. Now, the director of a certain government official has come out and said that we are expecting more than 100,000 deaths so that these will be controlled. So
and it will be interesting just to look at how this, I think on one of our shows, Diaspora Vibes, we were looking at just how the superpowers and how some of the changes that will be happening in terms of the governments and the countries who are going to be leading us moving forward. Salome?
I think this is the most amazing thing about the COVID-19. We shall have new hierarchy. I think China will be now and will emerge as the superpower. But looking at the US, at America, and in terms of even testing, I remember when COVID-19 was the first talks. Remember, Trump called it the Chinese virus.
Kung flu.
And then there was all this foul play, and let's give Trump credit. He's the only leader, despite the fact that he's met so many world leaders who have said that they already contacted they got the COVID-19. He didn't get COVID-19, but eventually he said he's ready to work with China, and this is coming out. a fact that is coming out is that China will really emerge victorious. And remember, just about the G20,
Yeah.
China came out and said that it's going to help countries try and fight COVID-19.
But then the restrictions they are giving all these countries is that you need to get off the barriers, the trade barriers that you have with China. But how will that now
I think it will be interesting just to look at some of the power play that is going to be informed by this virus. And on this note, let us take a short break. When we come back, we will be ready for In Other News, things that are happening in your locality as you tell us.
Now, Tracy, before
Kirobi, unawashwa.
before we go for a break,
Kirobi.
maybe to touch on what Salome had mentioned before, that is on 28th of March, China had reported 45 cases of coronavirus, and the day before it had reported 54. Then this means the number is reducing drastically.
Yes,
then
true.
it simply means that China's are very much disciplined, and they observe and finding ways of fighting this coronavirus.
I think we should take a leaf. We should definitely borrow a leaf from this country and just try to see some of the measures that are working for them. So let us take a quick break. We'll be right back. Yesterday was Sunday, guys. How did you go to church? Did you guys go to church? You know, at the end of the day, we really need to nourish our spirituality. Mlikuwa wapi?
Anyone can take it.
Anyone, everyone.
Unajua hiyo story ya church, kwanza nimeona wase wa Katho wamekasirika sana.
Why?
Jana kulikuwa na mass ilifanyika apparently in one of the mainstream medias. Wanasema mnakubali aje mass ifanyike na yet churches hazifai kufanya any business as of right now.
But you see, it's not the business of the church that was closed down. What is closed down is people conglomerating. And we actually have videos just showing how some of the Kenyans were able to spend their Sunday. Let's see this.
Avails of the firstborn. If you're here and you are a firstborn, lift up your hand just as you're seated because of space. If you're here and you are a firstborn, Ebu, ask your neighbor, you are a what born? Please talk to your neighbor. And if you don't know the name of your neighbor, a stranger is a danger. You know, somebody you don't know can intimidate you. So if you're here and you're not a firstborn, don't worry. This message is still relevant to you. Why? You will still get a firstborn son or a firstborn daughter. Or you still have a firstborn. Hallelujah. You have a firstborn sister, a firstborn brother.
In the mighty name of Jesus, and all God's people humped and said amen. You all like that a little too much, but that's okay. You know, it's crazy. We have drive-in church. You can wear what you want, and some of y'all still showed up late. But that's okay. We love you.
lanes, guys, lanes. Some of you are watching Facebook live services, and then some of other people are holding parking lots, churches. How did you spend your Sunday, Salome?
I'm personally a Presbyterian, and so my church was among the first churches to cancel the public church gathering and meetings. So, well, kudos to my church. But I also prayed alone at home with my family, and I think that was appropriate. But what was disturbing is the fact that the previous night, I think it was on Saturday, there was a church in Kakamega where people were holding a vigil or were praying, and the police had to like disperse the crowd. And then remember the case of one of the developed countries, one of the person who really spread COVID-19 was a person who was in church. So I think, well, us guys being asked not to go to church is not because the country does not want us to worship. They really just want to contain this
and I'm really happy that Kenyans wamejikazia vizuri. I think we didn't see a lot of activity in the churches yesterday, and people were just, there were actually memes that were going around, that previously the church was telling us social media is a bad thing and it is an enemy. and now 2020, we are actually looking forward to some of these platforms helping us to be able to broadcast messages. Clifford?
Yes, basically yesterday I was working, so I never went to church. But
unaendanga church kawaida? Ama tusikuchome?
Yangu ni sato, so
oh, all right, okay.
Yeah, so I've not been able to go to church ever since this coronavirus was reported in Kenya. But all in all, tunaomba Mungu moja. It's not one day ndio itafanya tukosane. I think hata yeye anaelewa kwenye imefikia. We really need to take proper care of ourselves, as much as we need to trust him that
for sure
he's the only person who really cares for each and every person amongst us.
I am really concerned, Kirobi. I am concerned because there has been backlash against the church. People are saying it is at this time that we expect them to show the philanthropy. Kenyans have been giving sadaka. It is now time. There has not been a particular church that has come out and told us this is what we are doing for the vulnerable communities. This is what we are doing for our faithfuls who are not able to provide for themselves at this time. Do you think the churches can do better, Kirobi?
Your point is very right. Churches can do better, but they should stick to the measures that the government gave, that there should be no churches where people conglomerate there and worshiping God. I think if it is allowed that, yes, we should pray God, that is according to some bishops and pastors concerning this particular pandemic, coronavirus in Kenya. We need to have churches, but let us have, let's say, 5 people or 10 people. Then others, they can watch live. There are other churches one can watch proceedings. It's not a must you go to your own church for you, because we are all praying for one God, just like the way Clifford had mentioned before. And I think this is a personal initiative. You need to stay at home, follow what the directives of the government, and ensure that you pray to your God so that we can end this coronavirus. But some Kenyans, just like the video that you had shown us there on social media, there are other people who are quite very interesting on social media, sending memes that a pastor is addressing cars. I think somehow Kenyans, to some extent, we are not
innovative solutions.
If it is truly we are serious, we are going before God, then let us pray from home.
You know, on a lighter note, Tracy, I saw someone ask a question, wapi ama pastor wenye wamekuwa kiponya watu, and the response was wanangoja hii virusi ishe ndio waanze kuponya sasa.
They're also scared. They're also scared.
And you know, I think earlier on,
it's so clear they want sadaka.
But also, Tracy, maybe you can ask, as much as you're asking what the church is doing, you've seen philanthropists, you've seen Jack Ma sending so much help to African countries. What our billionaires wetu wanafanya nini?
I saw memes saying wanangoja coronavirus ishe so they can come donate on Sundays and bring you millions. We do not want to name names because I think away from churches and what they are doing, we saw the arrest of KJ, John Kiari. Yeah. And I know Paul Kirobi was following up on this story. What happened?
John Kiare, definitely. Okay, right now, since the BBI rallies were shut, now it is itching some politicians, and they don't want to critically come and say this and this is happening. But some of them are using social media as the bot in order to attack the CS Mutahi Kagwe. And he mentioned one thing, the CS mentioned one thing and said, you politicians are not doctors. Therefore, you should not intervene on this. What you should provide is to ensure that Kenyans get the relevant information concerning coronavirus.
Guys, breathe in.
I think what's really pissed off Kagwe is the fact that KJ said that there are over 7,000 people in quarantine.
Yes.
And the CS was categorical. There are only 2,000. And also remember, personally, this is on my own personal opinion, I thought KJ was being alarmist, talking about 7,000. Well, of course, he's talking about prediction of the future or things that might happen. But at the moment, the CS was categorical. And guys, let's not always be negative.
Salome, I don't feel like this is being alarmist because, just following the thread and other tweets that this leader has been putting across, and you can actually read sense from the things that he's putting across. And this comes at a time where you're really keen on defending the CS, but ametoka kutuambia we have 1,000 ICU beds.
Let me correct that. Let me correct that. This, and I was in the brief yesterday, and this is what he said.
Yeah.
Right now, this is factual. We have made beds that can be used as ICU beds, and this is what he's saying. When this situation overruns, some of the hospital beds that were just normal beds can be used temporarily as ICU beds. This is the correction that he really
coming from a point of understanding, and I'd like you to put yourself in the shoes of this person who is in the village, who is just not relying on the interpretation that you've given, just the brief as it is. And Kirobi, what are some of the other things, the misinformation and disinformation that we've seen from government? Because this is not the first time that the government is being put on the spot for not providing us with information as we should have.
Okay, since the government is at the forefront, and right now is the CS, that is Mutahi Kagwe, is the one who gives directives, or rather the measures to combat coronavirus. I think we as Kenyans and also the media should play a key role in finding areas and not allowing Kenyans to be more alarmist than the media.
But it's on social media, Kirobi. What can we do? It's on social media.
Okay,
Yes,
social media is for everyone, but journalists and media stations, they should be at the forefront in order to ensure that they feed Kenyans with the relevant information and verified information.
Well,
Not allowing the whole Kenyans posting on social media, then you go pick it up.
Having the social media, the mainstream media being on the forefront of factual reporting. Kirobi, I want you to take this into consideration. On Friday, was it on Friday or Saturday? I think on Sunday, when Nakuru County came out and said that there's another death in the county, which was as a result of coronavirus. Now, the same government has not updated that till now. KJ comes out and said, hey, we have over 7,000, coronavirus people who have been isolated in my constituency. Why can't we just come out and say that, or rather the government explain the situation? Is that constituency, or rather are there people in that constituency of the same number? Yes or no? Why should they fight?
I think Kirobi brought out an interesting point that media should be at the forefront to help us find the right information.
The media is taking exactly what the government is saying.
I'm actually supporting you, Cliff. Breathe in. I'm actually supporting you. You know, Kirobi, it's important to realize that even as we play our role to inform people, at the end of the day, we need to verify these facts that the government is giving us. Because as at right now, I actually know of a friend who, one of her family members is in quarantine, and they tell us up to right now, no testing has been done, at that particular facility. And they've been in quarantine for slightly over a week now. And it will be important just for us to be able to put into perspective these things and not let things just run out of hand and let government mismanage or micromanage.
I think I'd like to address. Let me address the issue.
When you said that you're supporting what the health CS was saying, that Kiaria was wrong. But then let's look at it. If the mainstream media has to report what is factual, why are we being censored? Why are they controlling? Why are they having one channel of communication that each and every person should follow? Do you really trust what the government is saying? Have you counter-checked yourself?
I think Cliff is out of order.
No,
he's out of order because, and this is my reason. The reason that the CS say that he wants the channel of communication in regards to the COVID-19 situation to be directly from his docket is because he wanted to avoid an unnecessary tension. Let's imagine Mombasa does its own brief, Kilifi does its own brief, and Kisumu does its own brief.
And it will be a good thing because it will be a good thing because that way we can all help.
Then the case is
Salome, one question to you. Why has the government ignored the death from Nakuru County? They came out.
I think they really talked about the situation, and they talked about
we could see that CS Kagwe was very mad on Sunday.
I think Kenyans really need to not to be so angry and throw guns out on the government. But there's something else that I wanted to talk about. There's something that I really wanted to talk about.
This is the kind of ignorance which brought about this whole mess from China. This is how they overlooked the issue back in November, and now the whole world is suffering.
Let me address something. Let me just address something.
Guys. I think we can. No. I think we can agree to disagree, guys. We can agree to disagree. But we can agree that the government is right by just telling us we need to have one centralized form of communication, and that really makes sense. But on our end as journalists as well, we should be able to verify some of this information because we have our sources on ground. So, for example, what Cliff is saying, there are cases in Nakuru and all that. These are some of the questions that we should be sending in. So, and away from that, guys, we're running out of time. away. guys.
There's something you've talked about, the person who's in quarantine and they have not been tested. I think we need to really come out and speak the truth on this issue. And I really feel I need to address it. This is what is happening. This is what is happening. Kirobi, give me time.
Therefore, it's a collective responsibility.
I feel like I should ring a bell for you guys. Muna, this is now noise making, guys.
No, guys,
this is now noise making, Kirobi.
No, Kirobi, just a minute. Let me address this thing. The government has been very categorical in terms of test kits, and it's saying we do not have enough resources to test everyone. And the thinking of quarantine and the thinking of keeping people aside for 14 days is to let these people stay for 14 days. If they already are showing symptoms, then they will be able to test.
Salome, I think you need to understand.
Salome was about the death that was reported on coronavirus.
No.
And that is why I said there is the need of
guys. I think
journalists should verify that information that has been reported in that particular.
I actually agree with you, and I think on the same note with you, I think we need to Kirobi. I think, hey guys, noise making. I think we can agree to disagree on this one, and we will be looking out at some of the things that how the channels of communication will be kept and how we'll be able to verify this information to you, for you, as it gets to us. And I'd like us to just see how people now are spending quarantine. On top of everything else that is going on, hey, Kenya, see, you guys are creative people. Your governor, who has decided to look like a Star Wars, like a Star Wars.
Of course, he has no other duties to do. He has no other duties to perform. The president has already.
Is that a VR?
We have other leaders as well. And now look, away from their.
And that is very That's why I say Kenyans on social media we are jokers to some extent, because
all of us, including our leaders, guys,
spending this quarantine people should find ways at home on how they should help the government in combating this.
Look at the government. The government is cooking ugali on your screens. What government are you?
No, but of course, apart from them being leaders, let's just be truthful. They're also human beings who have other sides. They're not just leaders. Let them enjoy themselves.
I actually agree with Salome on this one. It will be interesting.
Yeah, you agree with Salome, but they have a great influence.
You know,
someone said
if it's creating influence, wacha watoke kwa manyumba zao uambie wasee ni aje tubaki kwa mahao, lakini sasa unajitokeza unapiga clip hapo mwingine sijui ati anakuja kuraa. That can't help. Kenya tunafaa kumobilize.
But also
I need you to look at this, Salome. It's right on our screens. This is Kieni MP, and he's helping people make masks and a crochet. I think amekaa nyumbani sana. Maybe the habits that the ladies around him, because this is a habit that is really associated with ladies. Have you guys seen people making these coronavirus masks? It's really disheartening when we see some of our leaders like this, and yet we know that these masks do not have the necessary filters just to be able to help us just filter out some of this pollutants and virus in the air. And it will be interesting to see more of our leaders, how some of them will be spending their quarantine. And then you guys also sent me videos, and we have other videos as well from social media, just showing us how you guys are spending quarantine, and I am almost jealous.
Yo, my name is Tangai Sakaja. And my name is JB Sakaja.
Hey, and I'm Super Senator Sakaja.
And we are the Sakajas. We came plugged in like a charger.
Na kuna vitu tunataka kutaja.
Cause Corona has become larger
Then the NIC,
CBA, Maja.
Hey, so we've got some ideas.
For instance,
try and keep
some social distance.
wash your hands
With soap and water.
Check your temperature if it's
Getting hotter. Check it and pick a home some moja.
do you confess your game Johnny Noma.
Kwa boma, watch TV soma.
Do corona maze sio kama homa. We do all we can do to keep you safe and effective, so please follow the government
directives.
Oh.
Cliff,
Yes.
this is more like it for you.
Wow. The rapping beat, I'm a hip hop guy, so thumbs up, but that's not the right way to pass your message.
No.
Really?
Cliff.
Really?
Cliff.
Wait.
No,
wait.
Cliff, we will stone you right here.
the message was clear. The merger, the bank
message was
merger.
clear.
Thank you.
And
so
also
creative.
it depends on the person you're passing that particular information to. That is a child and that is the governor. I think it's a good
Senator.
approach.
Yes.
It's a good approach, Senator Johnson Sakaja. It's a good approach. That is according to me, and that is what other leaders should do outside
And
there.
I am actually really glad that
coronavirus.
I'm really glad that we actually got to see that clip of Senator Sakaja, because yesterday on Youth Connect, we had Dr. Pizzo right on the show, and there were talks of just how people in Kenya are helping spread awareness and sensitizing people. And we actually had a story on one of the areas, which is Kibra, that is really vulnerable, and people were able to use different forms of art just to be able to get this message across to everyone. Clifford, I think, anawashwa because he thinks not everybody wants straight kizungu told to you.
By the way, I agree with you, because the song really talks about corona, talks about curfew, it talks about things that young people will relate. Anasema tembea lakini uje curfew ni noma bana. I think that was very creative of Sakaja, and his kids are adorable.
I actually agree, yeah. And I think on this note, we are really running out of time. Yeah. What's trending on social media, Clifford?
Chama, what is that guy? Just 1 minute. 1 minute. alishika handball kwa box. So hiyo handball inaleta a lot of chamanenyu.
Chamanenyu.
Yes.
Sweetheart. I think it's a Pokot language.
Meaning what? Nairobi. You tell me you've been there several times. So apparently a very good comedian Governor Lonyangapuo right now. Anapitia tu shida mingi sana. Kuna issues, 500,000.
I think it's important that we realize that these leaders also have private lives, guys, yeah? And just because someone has violated the trust of this individual doesn't make them less of a leader. I think we do not want to really pursue this line of thought. For now, we are still watershed hours. Hatuwezi ongea sana about it. Salome, your people at the University of Nairobi wame boycott online classes. What is going on?
I think, online ban ngumu, and
it's because you guys don't actually attend the classes.
Some of these guys, let me tell you, the funniest thing is some of these guys have been out there telling us ladies ati tutume picha ya chakula tunakula nyumbani. We are not doing anything online. Guys are not.
Unajua kama wa Nairobi University wamegoma. Kama wa Nairobi University wamegoma, wanaweza tu watch TV47 MKU na free.
But they switch to MKU roho safi. They can actually sit down and watch lectures from home. They don't have to.
Tuhurumie, there are those days when people will get to UN. I'm an alumni, but unaingia pale ukuwa young man but una graduate ukuwa mzee. So please.
Online classes is not right.
Something interesting coming up during for this discussion. This time I really think that students hawafai kuitumia tu kucheza ama unakata kusoma. Use this time to really empower yourself. Do something meaningful to
learn a new language, learn how to code. I think those are interesting sentiments.
But there's something else I think that I've realized. Most of the people can really work at home. I think going into the near future, I think companies need to reorganize themselves. We don't always have to go to work, because guys just realized you can work at home.
That meeting could have very easily been an email.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, on top of what other people are doing at home, I came across this TikTok video of one of our producers, presenters, reporters, Kawera Wagdenji, and it was hilarious. And I think on this note, we should close this show and just let you see some of the other things that TikTok has for you. Remember, send in your videos so that we can air them here tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Tracy Mokami. See you tomorrow.
Huku hatujaona kitu. Kama ni sanitizer huku hakuna. Wengine wanaoga na shampoo. What is shampoo chuari? Hata kama ni bar soap, arete tu tukatakate. Huku hatujaona kitu. Kama ni sanitizer huku hakuna. Wengine wanaoga na shampoo. What is shampoo chuari? Hata kama ni bar soap, arete tu tukatakate.
There comes a time when we hear a certain cough, when the world can't come together as one. There are people dying. It's time to wash our hands to prevent the worst disease right now. We can go on pretending day by day that someone somewhere will soon find a cure. We are all part of one great big quarantine, and together we'll survive. We are the cure. We are the treatment. We are the cure if we stay at home and do not spread it. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. So please isolate yourself for you and me. Oh, stay in your house. So this thing no go last long, and our lives we go back to normal. I know God can save us, oh, but we have to play our parts, and together we will all survive. We are the cure, we are the treatment, we are the cure if we stay at home and do not spread it. There's a choice we're making, we're saving our own lives, so please isolate yourself for you and me. Stay safe.